Hello everyone. In this module, we are going to learn how to create a scatter plot in Matplotlib. And the following are the topics that we are going to cover. Firstly, we will learn what is scatter plot. After that, we will see applications of a scatter plot. Then we will see different types of scatter plot available in Matplotlib. And in last, we will see syntax and example of a scatter plot. So, scatter plot displays value for two set of a data, and it is a chart that is used to visually depict and observe the relationship between two variables, and the variable values are indicated by the dot. In the case of a line chart, we plot a data between 2 points using a line, but in the case of a scatter plot, we only display the relationship between the data point using the dot, and each of them has its coordinate determined by the value of a variable. For example, one variable determines the x position and the other determines the y position. And scatter plots are often called as scatter graphs or a scatter diagrams also. So with this, we conclude that we use the scatter plots to identify the type of a relationship between two quantitative variables, if any. So let's see where we use scatter plot. So we use scatter plot in the cases in which we want to see the relationship between two variables. The scatter plot is used to show the relationship between two variables and to analyze the nature of the relationship and to observe the correlation. We use the scatter plot, and the correlations can be positive, negative, non-linear, linear, strong or weak. The another reason to use the scatter plot is to identify of a data pattern. So we use scatter plot to identify the data patterns, and data points can be grouped together based on how near their value are and make it easier to spot any outlier where there are data gap. And by using a scatter plot, we can draw best fit line that is used for further prediction of a new data value. So with this, we all know that a scatter plot helps in the observation of a relationship between two variables, and a correlation is the term used to describe this relationship. So now we will see different types of scatter plot available on the basis of correlation. So first type of scatter plot is scatter plot with positive correlation. With positive correlation, we mean that a scatter plot with increasing value for both the variables, for x variable as well as for the y. The next is scatter plot for negative correlation, and with this we mean that a scatter plot with an increasing value for one variable and decreasing value for another variable. Either it is increasing for x variable or for y variable. It is not increasing for both the variables. So the last type is scatter plot for null correlation. With null correlation, we mean that a scatter plot with no evident growing or decreasing trend in the values of the variable. Basically, on this plot, the points are scattered at a random over the graph. So the case which is not having positive correlation or a negative correlation is called as a null correlation. So now we will see the syntax to create a scatter plot in Matplotlib. And in Matplotlib, we use the scatter function to create it. And the syntax for it is matplotlib.pyplot.scatter, and we pass various parameters to it. First one is x, next is y. The both parameters are the necessary parameters. The rest are optional. If we can't pass, it take default value. So the other parameters are se, marker, cmap, norm, vmin, vmax, alpha, line widths, edge colors, plot none, finite, and keyword arguments also. Now we will discuss some mostly used parameters. So the first parameter is x and y, because these two parameters are necessary, so we can't have option to not use it. So it will take value in a float or a array like structure. Basically, it is the position of a data points. The next parameter is s. We will also take value as a float or a array like structure. It is the size of the marker in points. The another parameter is C. It takes color as a list or a simple as a color. It is a colors of a marker. The another parameter is a marker, and the value it takes is marker style, and it is used to change the designs of the marker. And we already discussed about the marker styles in working with marker properties module. So the next parameter is alpha. It takes value as a float or a none. By default it has a none value, and it is used to regulate transparency. If we pass 0 as a value to it, it means transparent, and if we pass 1 as a value to alpha, it means opaque. The next parameter is a line width, and it takes value as a float or an array like structure, and it is used to change the width of the marker edge lines. And the last parameter is a edge colors. It also takes value as a list of colors or a simple as a name of a color, and it is used to change the color of the marker edge. So now we will see example related to scatter plots. So here is the code for creating a scatter plot with positive correlation. So firstly I import a Matplotlib pyplot as PLT library, as we are working with Matplotlib. The next I create a data point. I assign two variables, first one as a time and another is a accuracy. The next I call the scatter function to create a scatter plot and pass variable to it, time and accuracy. Then I call the label functions to add label to the plot. So X label shows the time spent in hours and the Y label represent accuracy in programming logic. Then I call a title function to add a title to the plot, so we get to know what this plot represents. So with this we know that time spent and the accuracy in the logic is represented by this plot. Next I call the grid function to shows the grid line on the plot, and in last I call the show function to display the plot. Now I execute this code. So you can clearly see that with the increase of x-axis data coordinate, y-axis data coordinate also increases. It means both the coordinates are increasing. So this correlation is a positive. As the time increases from 2 to 3, the logical accuracy also increases from 45 to maybe 68 or 69. So let's see another example in which we represent the negative correlation, and we also use different parameters which we discuss. So here I import the library first, then I define the data points. For this time I take two variables as a production and the loss and pass value to it in an array form. Then I create a scatter graph by calling the scatter function, and I pass production and a loss as a parameter to it as x and y. Next I pass a s as a parameter to change the size of a marker, and I set it to 60, and I also pass c parameter to change the color of the marker, and I set it to r. Now I execute this code, and here r stands for the red color, shorthand notation of a red. So with this you can clearly see that with the increase of a production, the loss in the price are decreases. So it means it shows the negative correlation. If one axis is increases, the another axis is decreases. So I show you one thing, how you set different size for the marker and different color for each marker. So for this I call a as parameter and pass different sizes to it as a list, and I also called a c parameter and pass different color to it as a list. Now I execute this code, and here is the output. Now you can see that the size of the marker are different in each case and color also. This marker is the biggest in the size and this one is the smallest. So like this you can set different size for each marker. Now we will see an example of a scatter plot with null correlation, and here we also use different parameters. So here I define data coordinates as age and internet usage. So next I call the scatter function to plot a scatter graph. Firstly I pass s to change the size of the marker. Next I pass marker parameter to change the design of the marker. Next I pass the line width to change the line width of the edge of the marker, and I also pass edge color to change the edge color of the marker also. And in last I pass the alpha parameter to change the transparency of the marker. So next I call the x label and the y label function. With this we know that x is represent age and the y label represent internet usage. And then I call the title function which shows what this plot represent. And in last I call the show function to display the plot. Now I execute this code. So you can see that neither the plot increases, neither the plot decreases. Here the markers are randomly located on the plot. With this I mean this plot doesn't show positive correlation or negative correlation. It is null correlation. So from this we mean that age doesn't depict internet usage. It doesn't mean if we have small age we use more internet, or it doesn't mean if we have small age we use less internet. It is randomly. It depends upon person choice. It doesn't depend upon age. So with this we learn how to create scatter plot. So in the next module we will learn how to create pie chart.